Welcome back to my channel, everybody. This is an extended version of a video that will also be released at the same time, where this video just has a little bit more footage of the process of dealing with two husks of rock tumblers in a different way than I was advised to do so. There are so many things that you're seeing in this video that are from Amazon and other online shopping areas that have allowed me to put back together some of the pieces of my life. And by that, what I mean is we're given a certain set of circumstances. Like, for an example, I had two rock tumblers fail because the motors burned up, and I had to find two motors on eBay to replace the burnt out motors with. And I did that even though the manufacturer of these tumblers sent me two brand new full complete kits that were not as lean as they could have been. In other words, they could have just sent me two motors, but they sent me two whole kits, which left me two tumblers that essentially could be used if only they had good motors in them. So if you see these rainbows and that cat toy right there, those came from Amazon. Once again, thank you, Amazon, for all of the crazy things that we're able to get on a whim to help out one another. And at the same time, I just kind of want to showcase a longer version of this video that talks about the fact that I took two busted tumblers to repair rather than throw away, as was suggested by the manufacturer, because I have a feeling that we don't have adequate resources on this planet to continue to just throw away overall working items because of the failure of one simple part. So if you agree, I hope you give this video a thumbs up. I hope that you are able to follow along with the rest of the story and to subscribe and share where necessary, and hopefully to help these refurbished tumblers to get to their new intended home where they can be used by someone else who can enjoy this process in a less destructive way in terms of the hobby that we are participating in along this journey, where we turn rough items into polished forms while we are on this blue marble circling throughout the plasma, I guess, universe, if you want to put it that way. If you were ever to ask me in the past, or even currently, what I'm into wildlife and nature. And in a lot of ways, I've designed my personal life to include a lot of wildlife and nature, while also incorporating pieces that we pick up along the way, like these fishing weights that are attached to the floating fish habitat that you saw at the beginning of this video. And whether you saw it or not, in the fish habitat, there was a little ring that was previously attached to a guitar string, which I put to use after the guitar string busted. So here you see some fishing weights attached to a fishing line that goes up to the floating habitat that's held in place by a piece from a guitar string. I'm also into what some might call darker subjects. Like in the background, you can see a pumpkin from the poster of a movie called Trick or Treat. We're actually coming up on Halloween here, and our dog has been having some trouble walking. And so in the past on this channel, you saw me review some videos where my pup was able to sit up and smile. Well, the past few days, he's actually not been sitting up or smiling, and that's causing me quite a bit of grief. In the meantime, I'm still trying to show you some of the things that I've been doing Like, I've harvested seed pods from these plants along our walks so that I could kick off the same plants, which I've noticed the hummingbirds and other pollinators are extremely attracted to. And over just a course of a few weeks, I'm able to generate a handful of plants here and there over and over to continue to allow my garden to flourish, to tend to my garden and add to it. I'm not really sure how else to put that, but basically, I'm doing these things and picking up fishing weights, plastic, and the occasional stray cat along the way. This particular cat came to us about maybe 2 months ago and really befriended us. And along the way, she's called out some of the conflicts of interest. Like, for an example, you see these snacks in a blood pressure cuff. I'm showing this because basically I really had to pick up my game in order to keep up with all of the circumstances that are going on. And this cat that befriended us, believe it or not, brought 3 new lives into our lives about 4 weeks ago now. And so I've had to cut back on the junk food in order to continue to improve my overall health. And that in turn has allowed me to more efficiently tend to my garden and all the loved ones that we're able to continue to tend to in our lives right now in this household. Along the way, things continue to fail. Like, for an example, I'm into tumbling rocks. My grandfather was what he would call a rock hound, and I have a tumbler, or I had a tumbler that broke, and I had to replace it. And you can see the date and the time and the price of this item that I ended up replacing. And these devices are really fun. They allow us to do these things that maybe we don't really even need to do. Maybe there are professionals who can do these jobs more efficiently. But in the meantime, for my pastime, loving wildlife and nature, I also love seeing polished rocks that normally you would find on a riverbed. But with these tumblers, you're able to generate the same type of product on your own. So I ended up converting an area in my garage to house the replacement tumbler that I got. And I want to tell a story about these tumblers that you may or may not be able to follow along with. I hope you're able to follow along with it. I hope you're following along so far and that I'm not covering too many topics at once, but I'm showing you some grommets here. Basically, I drilled some holes in the back of this cabinet to allow for each of the cables for these tumblers to be powered. And as you look around at the things in my garage or in my life, I try to bring things to order. And as I do so, that causes me a desire to bring more functionality to that order. And while I'm doing that, I recognize that someone in the chain might be failing considerably, because when my rock tumbler failed, as I mentioned earlier, and I had to get a replacement, I also reached out to the manufacturer and told them that my rock tumbler had failed, because I actually had had 2 of them fail, both of them with similar issues with the motor having failed. And let me interrupt myself here. I showed the safety goggles. Safety first. You see a little dish here. Basically, I'm using that dish to put drilled out shards of metal into the dish so that they're not left behind. I ended up sweeping and vacuuming, but as the shards of metal came out, I put them directly into that dish so they wouldn't get lost. And back to the subject, basically, I had 2 rock tumblers fail, the motors failed, and I reached out to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer basically overnighted me 2 replacement tumblers, and I told you that I also had purchased a tumbler, so now I had 3 tumblers, and I ended up deciding in the long run to get 4 tumblers because there was space for 4 tumblers, and usually when you tumble rocks, there are 4 stages, and each of those stages requires a different type of grit. And because of this, and since you don't want to have the grits carrying over to your next polishing session, I thought that it would be more efficient to have 4 tumblers to perform each of those 4 steps. And so here you see basically me fitting the power cables to the cabinets and also having the grommets ready to install around the sharp edges of the cabinet. And you can see some of the work that I'm doing here. I'm going to stop probably narrating about the work and I'm going to keep telling you the story. The story is that 2 motors failed. I ended up getting 2 replacement tumblers, and essentially I decided to have a total of 4 tumblers. But what really surprised me is that the manufacturer could have found a way to send me replacement motors instead of sending a whole kit. The whole kit included new rocks to tumble, power cables, and all sorts of things that caused me to kick off this project that you're seeing, where aligning 4 tumblers in this cabinet to tell you a story about this hobby of mine, using these hobby tumblers to bring an aspect of nature into our lives. And for whatever reason, I've gotten some replacement motors for 2 items. You're seeing each of these items 2 of these items were sent to me complete, even though only the motor had failed. So now I've got 2 tumblers that are bricks that I didn't really know what to do with them, and so I bought some motors off of eBay that I could replace the burnt up motors with, and now I've got 2 extra tumblers in addition to the 4 that you see here. Now I've got parts from eons ago. As you can see, there's a part, and there are some heaters, and there's some propane, and there's a giveaway air pump, and there's a battery tender that I use for when I used to park my car indefinitely in order to keep the battery fresh. There are so many things going on that I'm trying to bring order to, but the ironic part is that in order to just simply tumble some rocks and to mention to the manufacturer that the motors were burnt out caused me to get more giant packages of all kinds of resources that, frankly, I don't think that the blue marble that we're on can sustain. Anyway, since we're talking about rock tumblers, I thought some of you might want to see the outcome of the rock tumblers. What I do is I pour the I don't know what you call it, the grit that comes out onto a stump that's supporting a birdhouse. And in my mind, I feel like the grit is going to fill in the cracks and keep the stump a little bit more solidified. Here are those rocks that have been polished. And right now, this is just showing them as they're drying. I'm going to show you the rocks shined up in a moment with polish. But for right now, I want to tell you in a very unpolished manner that this one hobby of mine has essentially cost me a lot of time, and it's cost us all a lot of resources, and it's cost me specifically in a way that has taken away some of the opportunity that I've had to tend to the other living aspects in my life. But in the meantime, the rocks that came out of this are pretty beautiful, pretty, if you ask me. And there are a lot of features in these rocks that are worth looking at. Just like maybe in all of us, we have qualities that are worth looking at. But as I've been tending to all these things and bringing things to order in a way that I think has been an effort to make things more efficient, I find time and time again that things are becoming less efficient and more costly to the resources around us. I don't know if you agree with this or not. Also, someone told me I needed to produce really short videos in order to win over an audience. I tend to talk about everything that's on my mind all at once, and I hope that you're not bored by these videos. I hope that you understand why I'm showing you these videos, and I hope that what I'm saying doesn't mislead you into thinking that I'm not grateful for every opportunity that I've had. I am overwhelmed with gratitude. I'm overjoyed that a stray cat came into our lives and gave us 3 new lives at the same time when our aging dog is possibly reaching his last days. And I'm extremely emotional about all of these things that are occurring. And at the same time, I wanted to tell you that this one hobby itself on the subject of rock tumbling has pretty much nearly broken me in terms of finances. And look at the colors of these rocks. Check out this next rock. It's that last rock and this rock are translucent. And if you look at this rock, you'll see a lot of the light shining through the rock, and you'll see a geode or a crystal structure on the inside. It's really beautiful. Anyway, you're going to see that just spending on some of these things, some of these pets, some of these plants, some of the things I do are free, but spending time and effort taking care of these things has caused me to reach my limit monetarily. And I know someone out there has more than enough to share. I'm not begging for it, but I'm going to ask once again, if you have a chance to either share this type of content or perhaps an electronic token of appreciation in the form of a monetary contribution, we would absolutely appreciate it. The plants, animals, people, and everything around me would benefit greatly from these opportunities. And yeah, it really would help. Thank you so much for subscribing. And until next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff. And don't be afraid to share and recycle your observations in the best way that you can.